Hi, today we are making a chicken called chicken under brick. Welcome to my brick oven lifestyle. So we're making chicken under brick today. The first thing we want to do is get the big 12-inch skillet heated, which I've been doing in the brick oven. I'm heating it to a temperature of about 425 degrees because we're going to sear the chicken on that. It's a 12-inch skillet and it looks like it's getting nice and hot. We'll leave it in there for just a little bit longer while we prepare the chicken. So I have a chicken fryer and it's around a little over 4 pounds. And what I did early, just to speed things up a little bit, I salted it and I put some pepper on it. And I did it on the breast side. What I'm trying to do is get the chicken to sweat and get that moisture out of the skin because that's going to give us a much crispier skin. So it's been a good 20 minutes, you can do 20 to 30 minutes, and it's starting to glisten, if you can see that on there. And what I'm going to do is just take a paper towel and blot that off. And we're just removing that excess moisture from the chicken. That looks good. Took that off of there. It makes a big difference when you take that step. So now I'm going to turn the chicken over and we're going to talk about what is spatchcocking. It's a big word, sounds kind of intimidating. It's basically taking this backbone out of the chicken. I use kitchen shears and I just cut along that backbone and took the vertebrae out, or the backbone out. And the reason I did that is to make it sit flatter in the pan. It's easier to cook. I also took a knife and just cut that little sternal notch, that little thing right here on your neck. I just cut that just a little bit. Again, that helps it lay flatter. And that's all there is to spatchcocking. I also, and it's totally up to you if you want to do it, I took the tips of the wings off. I think it looks a little better when it's cooking. You can leave them on, you can cut them off, you can add them back to the chicken when you're cooking it, use them for later, but I just chose to do it that way because it just looks a little bit nicer to me. So now with the inside of the chicken, we're going to season that. And we're going to use first a little bit of salt. I didn't really give a lot of specific measurements for salt. I'm going to guess probably about a teaspoon is what I'm going to use on this chicken. And I'm just going to go over the inside of the chicken and a little bit of the outside here on the underneath. Don't want to over salt it. Maybe, let's say more like a half teaspoon of salt instead. And just a pinch of pepper. And then the spices, I'm doing a mixture with chicken, thyme, rosemary, oregano, lavender are really good spices to go with chicken. So I did a little mixture in here. I also put in just a little bit of cayenne pepper just to give it just a little bit of a kick too. And all I'm doing here is sprinkling it over top, and I'm just using just a little bit of it. Really doesn't take much seasoning. I don't want to over season it. The chicken just has a nice flavor really on its own. I'll put a little bit on the outside. So that's all I do with the inside of the chicken. Now I'm going to flip the chicken over again. There's a lot of flipping the chicken back and forth when you're trying to prepare it here for cooking. So I had blotted off that salt and pepper. I am going to put a little bit of spray on top. This is going to help us get that crispy top also. You can use a brush and brush on oil, or you can just use a spray bottle. Doesn't take a whole lot of oil. I'm using an olive oil spray. And then since we took off all of that salt and pepper, I'm just going to put a little bit more salt and pepper back on. Sprinkle it on top. And just a little bit of pepper. Now the chicken is prepared for the skillet that's in the oven that should be about 425 degrees. And we're going to put it in that skillet breast side down, so I'll get that skillet out. I have a couple bricks here, and that's part of the chicken under brick idea here with the recipe. I have clay bricks. You want something that's nice and heavy, that's going to really hold that chicken down. And it's important to wrap it to keep the brick from touching the chicken, so foil is the ideal thing to use. And you just take a piece of foil and make it big enough that you can just wrap all the way around it, crunch the sides down. And I use 2 of them in my 12-inch skillet. So we have these prepared to go. Now we'll go ahead and get the skillet out and we'll put that chicken inside skillet. We're at right about 425, so that's the temperature of the skillet that's coming out. So it's very hot. Use your heavy gloves and quickly bring it over to the table. It's very hot. I can start to feel it through my gloves pretty quickly. Now we're going to take the chicken that we prepared and we're going to put it breast side down. So I'm going to flip it over and put it in the pan. When I do that, you're going to hear that sear, and we want that sear to get that crisp on the breast side of the chicken. The nice and hot pan. We don't really want to move the chicken around too much once it starts to sear. And this is the fun part, you get to put the bricks on top. It seems crazy to put bricks on top of chicken, but this method really is wonderful for the brick oven because it's protecting the chicken from burning, and by pressing it down, it's going to cook a lot faster too. So I'm going to just, get your bricks arranged so that you're pushing most of the chicken down and covering it. And then it's going to cook in the oven at 425 for about 25 minutes. I'll check it, rotate it if I need to a couple times, and then we'll pull it back out. The skillet's getting pretty heavy at this point, so I do this quickly. And let it cook. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 25 minutes. All right, it's been 25 minutes. Let's check the chicken, bring it out of the oven. Okay, I'm going to take the bricks off. So this is what the chicken looks like, and as you can see, it hasn't burned because the brick has covered it up nicely, but we want to get a nice crispy top to it. So the next step is to flip it over and try not to let it fall apart when you're flipping it over. It's really starting to fall apart at this point. And we can see that crispiness on the top of the chicken. But by putting it back into the brick oven for 5-10 more minutes, uncovered, it's going to give it a much more crispier top on it. So I'm going to put it back in the oven now, uncovered, for 5 to 10 minutes. Put my gloves on. Never want to touch that pan. Make that mistake of touching a hot pan that's just been in the brick oven. And I'll check this, rotate it just a little bit to make sure that it's browning evenly. Okay, now it's time to take the chicken out of the oven. Looks really good. It's crispy on the top, browning nicely. So the next step is to take the chicken out of the pan, and I'm going to set it on this little wooden cutting board. And I'm going to let it sit there covered in foil for 5 to 10 minutes. This gives it a chance to rest and reabsorb juices back into it to keep it nice and juicy. It's kind of falling apart at this point, so you have to really get a good hold of it. Sometimes tongs work well, sometimes spatula. I use them both. So I'm going to cover that with foil and just let that chicken rest. It's always important to do that, or else the chicken just is more dry. It's definitely a difference if you don't take this step. While that's sitting, I'm going to use some of this liquid here that we have, the gravy, to make a little bit thicker gravy here. I'm going to use my gloves again because this pan is still really hot. And I'm just going to pour some of this into my dish. It's just a very simple gravy. But this part of the gravy of the chicken that you get after cooking it has so much flavor in it that you don't want to just get rid of it and throw it away. So let's put a little bit of chicken broth in to fill that pan up. And then we're going to stir it up and just see if we got enough. I think I'm going to put the whole thing in it. I just did a little bowl. And that should have a lot of flavor in it. Actually, I'll bring it over here. I'm going to taste test my gravy quickly just to see how much flavor it has in it. That has a really nice flavor with all the spices that we put into it. This is my friend Adrian, and she's here to help me today taste this chicken. So let's take the foil off of it. It's been resting for a little while. The other thing I'd like to mention too is I usually use a temperature thermometer. Always make sure and go into a meaty part of the chicken. You can go into the drumstick or into the breast, and make sure that that temperature is up to 165. That's the cook temperature for chicken. All right, so let's try a little bit of the drumstick first.
Okay.
See what you think of that, and also if you'd like to try, if you'd like to try a little bit of the sauce, you're welcome to do that.
Should I dip
too.
it?
Yeah, dip it in there. I'll cut another piece.
It is very good.
So juicy.
It's so juicy and the spices are perfect.
You like the spices? Good.
Yes, the spices are perfect. I really like it.
Good. The chicken
It's really
stays very tender, and that's amazing when you have it under a brick like that. It actually, I don't know, it firms it up a little, but it still stays tender. You can just see how that's just kind
Yeah,
of
that is really good. I like that.
falling apart. Now go ahead and try a breast piece also. See how moist that is inside? It's amazing. I've always been a little bit intimidated by cooking chicken in a brick oven because the chicken skin burns so easy. And this recipe is just the best thing I've found. And it cooks fast this way too. Cut a little
It
bit
is really good. I want more.
See, I told you. You were skeptical.
I think it's really good.
Okay, I'm gonna try a little piece also. What do you think of the gravy?
I love the gravy. It just gives it more flavor.
Yeah, that is like super good.
Yeah,
I'm not
it is
saying
very
that
good.
just because I made
No,
it.
no, it's really
That's
good.
really good. We're gonna devour this whole thing. If you enjoy our videos and like the brick oven lifestyle, please feel free to subscribe so we can send you new videos and updates.